Today we're going to be working with skill set number 3, and that addresses the order of words in the Torah. So as always, if you have any questions, you can email me, and feel free to stop the video and pause it and rewind it and rewatch it as much as you need. So the first thing we're going to do is read the story together on page 7, and we have to read very carefully. Just to let you know, I've had to redo this recording a couple of times because I kept mixing up the words. It's hard to read English incorrectly. On the first day of school, entered the teacher into the room, and boy, did look she mean. The very first thing did she was to say, "Tomorrow we'll take you a test on all the Torah have learned we this year. Study hard, kids." In the back of the room raised his hand Jake and said Jake, "But it is only the first day of school. Have not learned students anything in Torah class this year yet? Has not our teacher taught us anything yet?" Okay, so what made this story confusing? Go back and circle all of the places that didn't make sense. So, for example, for the first one, on the first day of school, entered the teacher, and on the first day of school, entered the teacher. Entered the teacher sounds strange. That doesn't sound like the word order we would use in English. So, pause the video and go through and circle all of the places that seem strange. So now what we're going to do is go through and put the words in English into the right order to make them make sense. So we'll keep working with the same example from before. On the first day of school, entered the teacher into the room. We're going to change that to, on the first day of school, the teacher entered into the room. So now you go through the rest of the story and put the words into the correct order so that it makes sense in English. All right, so now we're going to look back at all of the changes that we made to the first weird story into an understandable second story. What did you do each time to make the story sound right? Write your answer in the space below. Now, here's a note about this. Don't tell me that you put the words in the right order. I know you did that. That was what the instructions were. What I want you to tell me here is what kinds of words did you have to change into the right order? So one funny or confusing part about translating the Torah is the order that the words appear. So here's a note that Torah Hebrew is also called Biblical Hebrew, which makes sense because it's coming from the Bible. And the word order is different than modern Hebrew, and it's different than English. So that's one of the challenges that we're going to work with today is if the words are in different order, how do we figure out what the Torah is actually saying? So modern Hebrew is written like the story that we rewrote to make sense. When you read it, you can translate it pretty much directly into English and understand what it's trying to say. But if you were to translate Torah Hebrew into English, it would sound like the first story that we read that was out of order in English, the one that didn't make any sense. So look at this highlighted text up here. This is written in modern Hebrew. Now, if you were to find this story in the Torah, in the different word order, how do you think the words would be rearranged? Figure that out and write your answer in this space right here. Now, since what you just wrote is in Hebrew, translate that directly into English. And if you've done this right, the words in English should not be in the same order as they are right here. So go ahead and write your English in this space right here. I know that I'm now giving you the answer to what you just did, but don't erase, if you didn't do the last page correctly, don't erase what you wrote. I'm interested to see what you thought it was the first time, and you're not going to be marked down for having the wrong answer, but you can write the correct answer in on the side. So, if Moshe katav et kol hadvarim was found in the Torah, it would be written like this: Katav Moshe et kol hadvarim. And it would be translated one of two ways. Either wrote Moshe all the words. And that makes sense because if you look at each of the word breakdown, katav is the masculine form of wrote in the past tense. So katav, wrote, Moshe, Moses, et kol, all hadvarim, the words. So that makes sense in a direct, wrote Moshe all the words, katav Moshe et kol hadvarim. Now let's take a closer look at the word katav. If we were to directly translate the word katav alone, it would come out as he wrote. It's the masculine form of the verb lichtov in the past tense. Now, if we were to say he wrote for katav and then read it in the sentence, we get way number 2, which is he wrote Moshe all the words, katav Moshe all the words. Now we have the job of identifying what the subject is of the sentence. So we know that a subject is always a noun, and when we see this sentence, we have 2 nouns, right? We have Moshe and words. So when we ask ourselves, is the sentence more about Moshe or words, we see that Moshe is the subject because Moshe is the one that did the writing. So we take the subject and we put it in front of the verb, and we get Moshe wrote all the words. Now, if we're using the second way that we translated it, of he wrote Moshe all the words, in biblical Hebrew, we know that he wrote, that we get from katav, the he means Moshe. If the words katav and Moshe, if the verb and the noun are directly next to each other, then we know that Moshe is he. So what we're going to do is we're going to take Moshe, we're going to put it on top of he. So now Moshe wrote all the words is the same translation that we come to. And now we know that that's how we would need to write this sentence in English for us to understand its meaning in biblical Hebrew. So now we get to the actual piece of this that is your homework. I'd like to point out that this worksheet does go from right to left. So, be aware of that as we're doing this. So we're going to start with the A column. And the sentence is as it would be directly translated from biblical Hebrew. She sang Miriam with her drum, which makes no sense. So we know that if Miriam is the subject and sang is the verb, then Miriam needs to go in front and replace the she. So we show that here, and then we actually fix it here. We take Miriam and we put it on top of the word she, and then we write it pretty, make it pretty, right here in column D. So here's another example. And he said God to Moshe. Now, I'd just like to point out that there's a little bit of a typo in this. God is supposed to be what's circled. So God is the subject, and he is what we're going to be replacing. So we move God all the way over, put it on top of the he, and that translates to, and God said to Moshe. So go ahead and do that for the rest of these exercises and show your work. You're going to show your work in columns B and C, and then column D is going to be where you have your pretty English written in a way that makes sense. So go ahead and finish this worksheet, and then the next time that we're together in class, we're going to practice some more with some English, and then eventually we'll be practicing with the Hebrew as well.